Something really weird is happening in Britain. People are leaving, and they're leaving at scale. And it's not just the ultra wealthy, but regular families and young professionals. And it's not just a trend, it's become an entire movement. But why? Why are people packing up their bags and abandoning a so-called prosperous nation? And where on earth are they going? I wanted to understand what's going on here, and to get the answers, we need to rewind the clock and go back in time to where it all began. Now, in the 1960s, Britain was a land of opportunity. My grandparents moved here from the Caribbean, lured by promises of better opportunity and a better life. Back then, houses were affordable, jobs were stable, and the wages were enough to support a family. I mean, you could buy a home for just a few £1,000s. And to put that into perspective, the average house price in the 1960s was just £3,600, just 4 times the average annual wage. You compare that to today, the average house price is £280,000, more than 9 times the average annual wage. Housing wasn't just a dream you hustled for, it was a part of life. The middle class was thriving and upward mobility felt almost guaranteed. That was the promise of Britain. You work hard and you can build a stable and prosperous future. But over time, that promise began to unravel. Fast forward to the 1980s and everything started to change. Margaret Thatcher's government embraced free market policies, privatizing industries and introducing the right to buy scheme, which meant for millions of council tenants, the chance to buy homes felt like a dream come true. But there was a catch. You see, for every council home sold, fewer were built. And by the end of the decade, the stock of affordable housing had plummeted, leaving future generations to face a severe housing shortage.
20,000 jobs have been lost in Britain's coal industry in the past year. Another 20,000 are expected to go in the next.
This is also a decade where industries like coal, steel, and manufacturing collapsed. Entire communities were left without work as factories and mines were shut down. And between 1980 and 1990, UK lost over 1.5 million manufacturing jobs. But at the same time, London's financial sector boomed, creating a new elite of bankers and traders. The result? A widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. Inequality, measured by the Gini coefficient, rose sharply during this period, marking the beginning of the erosions of Britain's middle class. By the 1990s, things seemed to improve.
We were elected because as a party today, we represent the whole of this nation. And we will govern for the whole of this nation, every single part of it.
The Cold War had ended, and Britain entered what economists call the long expansion. Now, from 1992 to 2000, GDP grew at an average rate of 3% per year, and unemployment fell from over 10% to under 5%, and wages rose steadily. It was a decade of stability and prosperity, a time that many look back upon with nostalgia. Now, to illustrate the story better, I'm going to introduce 3 fictitious characters. And the first character in the story is Ada. Now, Ada started her nursing career for the NHS in 1993, and this was a hopeful era. She worked long shifts, but she felt like her efforts would actually pay off, that she could build a future, not only for herself, but for her family. But even in the midst of growth, the warning signs were emerging. Housing prices began to rise sharply between 1995 and 2000, where house prices increased by 50%, far outpacing wage growth. And while the deregulation of financial markets fueled economic growth, it also created a fragile foundation that would collapse in the next decade. Then came 2008, a financial crisis that rocked the decade. The 2008 financial crisis hit like an earthquake, wiping out savings, collapsing banks, and leaving millions struggling to make ends meet. Now, Ada's wages stagnated. Her children, now in their 20s, couldn't even afford a home. The average age for first-time home buyers rose up to 30, from just 23 in the 1960s. And austerity measures introduced in the wake of the crisis stripped back public services that had once been the backbone of Britain's middle class. Now, between 2008 and 2012, real wages fell by over 5%, marking the worst period of wage stagnation since the Second World War. Housing became even more unaffordable, and inequality widened further. The promise of the 1960s felt like a distant memory. Post-COVID, a new trend emerged. Remote work and online businesses became the new norm, untethering jobs from geography. And here we introduce our second character in the story, James. Now, James is a 23-year-old working in remote sales for a tech company. And for him, there's little incentive to stay in the UK. You see, James earns a London salary of £8,000 a month, but he works in Bali, where everything is way cheaper. He leverages geographic arbitrage, which means to earn in a stronger currency and transact in a weaker currency. Now for him, the high costs, the cold weather, the bad vibes, the long commutes of the UK simply don't make sense anymore. And James isn't alone. Across the UK, young professionals are asking the same question. Why stay in a country where everything costs more and offers less? And that brings me to the final character in the story. We have Michael, who is a multi-millionaire agency owner who earns over £2 million in profit per year. But the unfortunate part of living in the UK is taxes. For someone like Michael, UK's 45% tax rate and the high cost of living feels punitive. He's moved to Dubai in his luxury penthouse where there's no income tax and the lifestyle and network is unmatched. Not to mention that he has better safety. He can leave his penthouse door unlocked with his expensive Rolexes and not have to butt an eyelid that someone is going to go and steal it from him. Now, whether it's James or whether it's Michael, there's no denying that UK is losing its brightest minds and its wealthiest citizens in the largest brain and wealth drain. So you might be asking the question, why is everyone leaving the UK? And it's not just about the taxes or the high cost of living. It's about a system that no longer rewards effort, no longer rewards opportunity. Britain feels like a country that punishes its citizens at both ends of the spectrum, squeezing out the middle class and driving out the wealthy. And if this continues, the consequences are profound. You see, with every James who leaves, Britain loses innovation, spending power, and future potential. And with every Michael who relocates to Dubai or Monaco, it loses out on tax revenue and economic stability. And what will be left behind is a society under strain, a hollowed out middle class, overstretched public services, and an economy unable to compete. And if this exodus continues, Britain faces a dystopian future. Public services will collapse under the weight of austerity and a shrinking tax base. Urban decay will spread, with empty high streets, rising homelessness, communities abandoned by investment. Inequality will continue to soar, with the wealthy living in gated luxury, whilst the rest struggle to make ends meet. Now, by 2030, it's predicted that over 1.5 million Britons are expected to leave. The pound is weakening and the Gini coefficient is at its highest level in over 40 years. Britain risks becoming a relic of a once prosperous past, a nation that once promised opportunity, now defined by decline. The UK stands at crossroads. Can it rebuild the opportunity that once defined it? Or will we watch its people and its future slip away into the shadows? Hey, it's Nathan here. Hope you enjoyed that mini documentary. This took hours and hours of research and editing and planning. I put a lot of effort into this to make sure it's high quality, high production. You can expect many more videos like this on the channel. All I ask from you is just to drop a like and subscribe if you actually enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.